All right, welcome everybody to the August 2021 meeting of Membership Minds. Great to have you all. I know it's a very busy time with vacations, getting ready for school. There's a ASAE conference on right now. So I really appreciate everyone that's here and ready to discuss membership issues, recruitment, retention, onboarding, engagement, all those great topics that we always deal with on a daily basis. So happy to have anyone chime in. Scott, if you want to, Scott, my co-host here is, maybe you can chime in with a topic, or if not, we can just open up the floor.
I'm happy to I have something, but I'm happy to open up the floor first because it's obviously, Dan, not about me and you, it's about everybody else.
That's
so
right.
If anybody has anything they want to discuss, let's toss that out there first. And if not, I have something I'm just curious about.
Sorry, I created the Zoom faux pas. So I have something, and it's, at the start of the pandemic, the way our association works is we have affiliates, we have members who join directly through their state association, and then we also have some states that don't have a local state association, so we manage them, the National Association, directly. And so, for lack of better words, we kind of use the states that don't have enough local affiliate as a way to launch new programs and kind of see how they're going before we decide to launch them nationally. So one of the things that they don't have as well, since they don't have the local presence, is that in-person networking that a lot of times you might get at your local association. And so at the start of the pandemic, they didn't have local networking, but we decided, let's start these informal coffee breaks so people can jump on, and it's a way for them to connect, and it's a new member benefit for them, actually, because they didn't have a way to connect with one another other than, if you happen to know someone that was in that state. So we've had I guess varying amounts of attendance, and so that's kind of my question, where it's more, I feel like I know the answer. It's going to be, well, maybe they don't want it. That's why you don't have people that are attending. But I also feel like that's the number one, well, it's one of the top member benefits that our members say, getting to connect with others and, networking. So we do have people that attend enough that now we've broadened it and opened it up to the other states that do have affiliates. But when we were doing it with just our initial 10 states, there was the same, let's say 10 people that attended, but we never got any new people. So I was just kind of, wondering if any of you offer anything like that, and maybe just some ideas or what you were thinking maybe could make it better, or some reasons why people wouldn't attend something like that.
Well, Dan, I have a follow-up question. CalSAE does a lot of these, and they just call them couch chats. When the first wave of the pandemic hit, and I don't know what wave we're on now, but it seems like the worst wave we're kind of living through at the moment. But when the first wave hit, they just said, everybody's got to see each other. We're not even having a topic or anything. It's just come in and say hello, get in your little box and talk for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it might be. And it started out that went really well. And then the interest sort of waned, because I think that people oftentimes, not all the time, need a reason to come, right? Mm-hmm. So my question for you, and or suggestion, if you guys aren't doing it, is maybe it can be based around topics, and it can be broad as CEOs only, come CEOs, EDs, whatever the group might be, senior level folks, come talk about your senior level issues. Mm-hmm. To other things that are important in the industry, but then make it more focused so that they can literally say, I'm going to take a chunk of time out, not just to connect, mm-hmm. but to hopefully learn or get some information as well. I think that's why, in many ways, we get a decent number of people on this call, is because it's focused, right? If you want to talk about membership, come here. It's not just come talk about association stuff, right? Yeah. And then you never know what it's going to be about, and you never know who's going to attend, and you may get something and you may not get something out of it. So that would be sort of my question and or recommendation, is maybe where you guys need to go to reinvigorate that interest is to have it about something. And so that way people can literally latch on to, it is going to be about this, so it's worth my half hour, because I'm going to get to see folks, but I'm also going to get to learn something.
And so as a follow-up about that, do you have speakers that come and do like a little 10-minute something, or is it just a topic and then you open it that way?
Callus AE just does topic.
Okay.
And I mean, this is our world, so it's not really as pertinent to yours, but like there's one on membership and people come and talk about membership issues. There's one for executive directors / CEOs, and they come and talk about whatever they're facing. I can't remember, but there's one for meetings and things like that. So that is as focused as it gets. And then they often, what I think does help is there is a person assigned to be the facilitator. So they come in and give welcomes and let people kind of know and the lay of the land, and that it's just, we're just going to talk and whatever, and who's got stuff and whatever, and to keep the conversation going. If there's ever dead air, they chime in and say, all right, who else has something else in this topic area that they want to talk about? Because otherwise, if you just throw members in a room together, you could have fantastic conversation. You could have somebody that dominates, or it could be dead air. You never know what you're going to. So to have a facilitator there, at least you're guaranteed something.
Yep. Thank you.
So yeah, and this is a great topic, I feel as though, because it is, again, I've always said meetings are the core of the value proposition for membership, is that that connection, that networking. I call it meetings sometimes, but it really is connecting. And to me, what it does, I think there's a lot of questions to ask. Okay, so like if the group comes together and it doesn't grow and it's the same group, is that a bad thing? I don't know if it is. We have it at FMI, we have what we call share groups, where 5 CEOs of 5 companies that don't compete but want to share information, they'll come together and they don't want it to grow. They just want that small group of 5 and just share very deep and very detailed information. And they actually, one of those share groups actually has 16 subgroups. Depending, they get all their HR people of those 5 companies together in a subgroup to talk over just HR stuff. And, and so that, to me, that's a nice model. That's one model. There's other models, kind of what Scott's talking about, that are centered around the topic. That's topic based. Then you have the other models where, like this one that we're in right now, where it's just we're around a certain role or certain area of the association world, and whatever we want to talk about, we can talk about here. And whoever wants to come, however big the group, it's still valuable. So one of the questions is that I always ask, and I always kind of wonder about, and I'd love to hear your feedback, any of you, on the fact that if it's something that we offer and it's valuable, is it valuable even if it's not used? Right. So the folks that that are join to get connected, but yet they don't show up to these meetings. But they tell you, oh no, being connected is the most important thing to me, and that's why I joined. Yet they don't connect on their end. What is it still valuable to have the opportunity to connect, even if they don't? I wonder.
Dan, that's such a brilliant question, because for years I've always tried in our research to capture that other element, because if we sit there and do like a traditional approach where we say, okay, 14% of people indicate they've done something in the last couple of years and 90% did this other thing, we don't want to sit here and conclude that thing that 90% of people did de facto has such an incredible increase in value over the other one. You got to go that next step and find out, do you have a fear or regret of missing out? Did you appreciate the fact that the organization is doing this? If we took it away, would you miss it? Those sort of things where you sort of like get at it to try to figure out, look, and most people, when you talk to them, of course, I do a lot of qualitative interviewing with members and, even, board members and leaders. And a lot of times, what you hear from them is kind of regret, saying, I know you guys do so many things and I wish I could take advantage of more. So I pick and choose. And of course, it's kind of like in the grocery business. If you said, well, the Horton household only buys like, 25 SKUs. So I'd really like to go to a store that only has those 25 instead of the other 80,000. Well, it would be a lousy store and I wouldn't go there anymore. I always feel like we have to sort of manage our assortment that way too, where sometimes we do have too much, but I still think you got to look at things and say, look, for this particular service, only 5% of people used it last year, but about 70% appreciated it. And 25% were like, meh, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then the other important thing to think about though is internal resources, right? Like we don't all have unlimited resources. So if the members are telling you that it's awesome, but they're never using it, but it still requires resources, Kevin, it kind of reminds me of when we used to do, or I'm thinking what ASAE's decision was behind it. Dana, this may have been, I think this was before you were there, but with the idea swaps and the super swaps and everything like that, we all thought they were awesome, but it attracted 40 people out of 20,000.
Mhm.
And
Right.
yet it required 2 staff people at every one. So somebody, I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but I'm guessing somebody did the math and said 2 staff people, 2 staff person requirement there, 40 people that it's helping. Yeah, no, we can make better use of our time.
Yeah.
And so that's the other balance that we also have to play, is making sure that we have the resources to do it. Otherwise, we got to go put people where the biggest bang for our buck is going to be.
And I totally agree with that, Scott. You're bringing up an unhappy memory for me after all the time we spent in creating those. And yeah, we were still pretty proud. It's like super swaps might have 100, 110 people, but the problem was it wasn't generating, $400 registration. We were charging people $25 to cover lunch, right? And so if you look at it that way, I mean, the other thing that I looked at there is that, okay, well then can we just put us on closed circuit camera and have security rush in if we're, performing an unnatural act instead of having to have a couple of staff chaperone? I mean, that's that kind of thing where I think it starts to get back to what Dana was describing, where, when you have a local presence and it is generally unsupervised, in a sense, you got to sort of take a little bit of a lead from the folks in their organic need at that local area, as long as they got the continuity. And of course, that's more easily said than done. You've always got succession problems, or one poor sap is a volunteer who organizes everything. But within those constraints, you can still have a pretty good program where, even though, like Dana, you said in the one case, you didn't convert any to membership. No, you're probably not gonna. I mean, it's gonna be a case where maybe it spreads good word of mouth, but it's never going to be a huge contributor to your bottom line. But you never know just how much of an effect you're having on the careers of those folks too, by simply being a catalyst, not the party that puts it on per se, just the party that made it possible for those folks to, take the brave step forward and start inviting each other to come and have a little round table, so.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think, it's evolving, and like I said, we launched it with our national only states. And so we had a good amount of people, enough that we've continued it. We're going to continue it. We've tried different times. Now that we've opened it up to our other, 40 states, we're going to see how that goes. And then I want to survey our members to see, how do they like it? And, I think it's with anything, if you have time to come, you come. Some people may be lack of awareness, and then it could be like, I had a guy last time who was like, hey, he got 2 resources out of our group meeting, and therefore he was like, well, this was worth it for me, so maybe he'll come back, maybe he'll tell someone else. But it could be the host in me that's like, you want people to come and you want them to find value in it, and you want to see it grow. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Right. And I completely feel the same way. Dana is like, growth. I always want growth. I want more participation, more engagement. Again, that fosters retention over time. And for those folks that aren't members, if he's saying that he found 2 valuable resources, it's like, then, imagine what you'll get from national when you get, tap into all of our resources. It's the opportunity for national or even the state level to actually make that connection and show and prove the value of what they're offering to lure them to do more and get it more engaged and actually become a dues paying member. So so I feel as though it's always should be something that's part of the mix of everything. You should always have it, even if it seems like, like Kevin's saying, 2 staff members, or Scott was saying 2 staff members, 40, to me, it's always, we always need it. It's always needed. You need to find some ways of keep doing it. And, again, one of the other questions is Scott mentioned the topic-based type of stuff. I always wonder if I had, and like these meetings, if I said, we're only going to be talking about, retention or, onboarding or, member complaints or something like that, how many people wouldn't show up? because they know what the topic is. You know,
Yeah.
is it actually attracting or pushing away certain people, depending on, you know, it's like, well, that we've got that figured out. I don't need to go to that meeting. I don't need to spend the time on that. But
Yeah.
you know, you never know. And so that's why I feel like there's all these different levels and mixes of this type of activity to get them engaged. If you hit on one that does attract 40 people, I would say, you know, keep it and try to make it as efficient as possible. Maybe you only send one staff member, or, you know, you know, have a volunteer in charge instead of that, you know, but just keep it, do your best to keep it. I always cringe when someone at my organization says, you know, I think we're going to phase this out. And it's like, okay, hold on, let's look at this and make sure that there's not like this, you know, these 20 members that are the most loyal members of ours that would be, you know, leaving if that left, you know.
Isn't that funny
hard
though,
to
Dan?
take it away.
Yeah, I just think of Harrison Korver before the Race to Relevance, when he had sort of like an earlier iteration. And his shtick was always sunset reviews. You got to look at the entire portfolio of programs you have. Focus, focus, focus. That became kind of a Jim Collins thing too. And we're sitting here nodding, saying, yeah, you know what, you know, sunset reviews kind of suck because there could be just a few people who are quite influential. They need that in the assortment. And I always felt, at least personally, and only my opinion, you know, that's worth about 25 cents or so, is that, you know, you should still focus on having the assortment. If something exists organically, you know, we're not trying to take all of our programs and make them all fit the same model. Each one requires this much staff time. This one has to require, you know, sort of a review and, you know, redirection. Every session, you know, one of our standards has to have a topic. Like you said, Dan, there's a disadvantage there. I always feel like, you know, sometimes, you know, we kind of, you know, we got a hammer, so we're looking for a nail. And so if we, you know, say we're going to go do a review of programs, well, something had to give. You know, it's like, well, no, actually, most of the time, like when I look inside of an association, most of what they got works. It just works at different levels, you know, and so, you know, yeah, it's they're not all profitable. And a guy with an MBA would probably say, hey, slough off everything except the top 3 performers and then make money. I was like, you know,
Yeah.
relationship business. It's you don't want to pit, or excuse me, you don't want to upset, you know, those other people. So.
Hi, Pat. I see a chat from Pat here. Sorry, I'm trying to bring
I
it
have
up
a barking dog, so you know I can.
Oh, no, feel free. Feel free. We all understand. So something I hear being repeated is, do you focus on the number of attendees or the engagement of those? Yeah, right. Right, and that's the point. I think it is also, and it's, again, in membership, it's always the answer to those either or questions is both. So you know, it's like I always ask, you know, do you want higher dues or do you want higher counts? And they're like, yeah, we want both. It's, you know, because you can get higher counts with lower dues, you know, and vice versa. But you know, most of the time when you ask them, they're like, no, we want both of those. And so yeah, you don't both want quality and quantity, and you know, but you know, kind of to what Kevin's was talking about too, you know, the one thing that technology has taught us is the value of many channels rather than just a few. You know, back in when I started out, Scott, when I started out in you know, the association world, it was direct mail, and that was that's the channel, and there's not really other channels. The phone maybe, but for the most part, you know, direct mail. Now it's, you know, you got social media, email, texting. I mean, you just start piling on all these different channels, and you realize that there are people that are listening through different channels. And that's all they're listening through. They're not going to listen through mail. They're not going to answer your call. So, you know, you have to find a way to, you know, get the message out there and connect with them through the channel and the way that they want to be, you know, engaged versus the way that we want them to engage with us. You know? So, you know, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. And the FOMO that you kind of mentioned too, Kevin, I think was, you know, sometimes I listen to Tony Robbins. I don't know if you guys do, but I think, you know, if you can slosh through the hours worth of stuff that he talks about and to get the nuggets, one of the stories he tells, I think I get it right, that there was an experiment where they gave a monkey like you know, a banana or something. And the monkey basically was happy, but when you took the banana away, he was unhappy. Okay, but if you gave him 2 bananas and you took one away, then he was like still angry, even though he still had one in his hand. It's
Yeah.
like, again, that fear of missing out or just taking something away, even though you really haven't taken anything that valuable away, it's still taken away. And that's that
Mhm.
feeling of being, without,
Yeah.
is something that is a lot, it's a lot more, seen or at
Mhm.
least experienced by members than when you give them something. Again, they
Yeah.
kind of expect that you're supposed to be giving them something anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I don't know how valuable that philosophy is, but there you go.
No, I mean, but I think I think it kind of matches with everything. Like, you host it, you probably have people that attend this meeting when they need something. You might have people that attend all the time, but and so that I feel that's kind of how it is with my, with the coffee break. It's people attend when they need something, but you do have some regulars as well. So it's just
Right.
maybe, like I said, just making people aware that they do have this as an option if they ever need to, connect with other people or, seek advice or talk about their challenges. So
Yeah.
Well, Dana, it's funny because I'm in the middle of a couple of surveys for Lowell Applebaum, and then a survey that I do every couple of years on chapter structures with Peggy and Peter from Mariner, where we're reaching out to the entire community. And two different observations here. One is that I catch myself at first going through all these open-ended comments where we ask, for example, how engaged are you? And would you like to be more engaged? And in what ways? And so, we include members and non-members in the distribution. They say, well, I just want to find more ways to become engaged as a non-member, And when I typically bring that message back to the membership director, they're just like, horrified. It's like, don't they understand how our structure works? It's like, to a person that you just asked what they want, they just told you what they want, and they just want to be able to be involved and to reach out. And they're sort of like the ultimate occasional person where, if you keep them in a distribution in communications, but you don't have your hand out all the time the way they see it, saying, hey, give me some dues, what actually happens is ironically, you start to cultivate this audience a little bit better. The individual meeting has more density, has more people, more participation, greater network, et cetera. There's a lot of times that sort of old free, business model that the one guy from oh my God, from the magazine, Chris Anderson, I think his name was, he did a good book on it. It was all the rage about 10, 12 years ago, just for a while, saying, if you just offer it for free and then let them pay what they want to, well, there are actually some associations that do their dues that way, and they're actually doing very, very admirably. So, sometimes I just sort of like take my first reaction of like, wow, client's going to love hearing that. And then try to remember that, hey, if you just have like a large number of people in the local area that you are serving with your, with your outreach, your organic programs, you might actually start to see over time that people do join. They just join of their own volition because they had a positive experience. But the other thing that had struck me is that this year we tried to ask CEOs particularly about how they feel about their chapter network or their quote unquote local presence. And what was interesting is that we were trying to reach out to the people who don't have a formal structure. Peggy for years has made this big deal out of like, just try to find local networking groups, things that are sort of organic. Well, what does happen, Dana, is it almost seems like people need structure still, especially inside the organization, to where you don't totally neglect them. You don't treat them like sort of like your bastard stepchild or something, where, yeah, we got this person in San Antonio who likes to put on events, but we just don't know how to treat him. And so like we're hearing from the CEO part of this already, as I'm looking at some of the raw stuff, is that most people are like, I wish we had a chapter network, And of course, the ones who have a chapter network will tell you the 14 things wrong with them, but it's almost like if you had a choice between formal and informal, you probably do want to have that. And I know that's not one of your key questions, but I do think what happens in a state, even like the size of Nevada, I mean, they could be putting stuff on in Reno and I wouldn't care because I'm not going to fly to it from Vegas or vice versa. It's always going to eventually get down to a local level where Scott will do stuff in San Diego that he just wouldn't consider, flying up to Sacramento to, because it's a big state. So
yeah. That's coming up. So.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of comes to mind sometimes with me too is I always kind of look back at that TV show Cheers, You know, you always have the Norms and the Cliff Clavens, you know, that are constantly showing up and always there. And then you got the others that are regulars or just kind of, you know, are gonna, the ones that are only coming in once in a while. So you know, you got, you know, it's based on, again, it's almost like, I feel as though that I always say the organization's responsible for getting the engagement to happen. And, you know, then the members hopefully engage the way they want to engage,
That's
at
true,
least
yeah.
knowing the opportunities that they have.
Hmm.
Has this helped so
Yeah,
far? Okay,
it's
good,
really
good,
helpful.
good. All right, good. Well, we have a few minutes before 1 o'clock. We always go a little bit over, but is there other topics or issues? I'll put in a commercial for next month's. I want to make sure I get the date right. The 21st of September. I'm actually having Tony Russell return, and we're going to go over the benchmarking survey. So the MGI's recent benchmarking survey, hopefully everyone knows about it and has downloaded and started reviewing it. If not, go ahead and do that before next month. And Tony will be here to answer questions. I usually have some pointed questions for Tony about these type of things because I'm always a skeptic when it comes to data, but I think it'll be really valuable to have him here to answer some of those questions and maybe to give us some insight into what the report's saying. I think, you know, through all the different sessions I've seen already on it, through ASAE events or other events or just the event that MGI had, I think it takes a while to kind of learn everything that's in there. And I think they're starting to realize some of the things that that's in there, but or answer some questions that people may have that they never realized were out there. So so just remember that on the 21st of September. I'll send out messages, I'm sure. But other questions or?
Just a quick question for the folks that are on here. I'm assuming that most of us, you know, we started with this with a brief discussion of, hey, you know, it's a sparse turnout because of annual meeting, probably, you know, but and of course, you know, summertime and people with lives and stuff like that. But I'm just kind of curious about whether anybody is sort of getting out of the habit of going to, you know, sort of, or going to, or sitting at their desk and registering for things like ASAE. Are some of you like perennials that you're just not going this time, or Scott, are you registered? You're just here? Yeah.
I came to the understanding in my deep self-awareness investigation, I realized that I am a horrible, horrible, horrible virtual attendee. And why would I bother registering? Because I'm not going to pay any attention. I'm going to do my own thing. So why pay? And I also, you know, I have been, and I will take ownership of this. I've been disappointed by almost every one that I've been on. Like I did, not to bash anybody because I'm guessing somebody got something out of it, but the ASAE Research Foundation did their Seaside Classic yesterday. It was 45 minutes of a video that people donated to go to. I actually donated to the foundation, so it was included as part of my donation. I didn't pay extra. I didn't watch it. I'm like, seriously, this is what is being produced? And so I just, between my perception of not getting value and my inability to pay attention, which may lead to part of my perception of not getting value,
Right.
I'm not doing it anymore because unless it's like a half an hour, 45 minutes, and I can pay attention with half of my brain, I'm not signing up because I'm not getting anything out of it. I've probably got more CAE credits at this point than all of us would need to get a CAE if we wanted to, because I do register for things and I get notification that I have participated, but I'm not getting anything out of them. And I am hesitant to say that I would go in person at this point because I don't trust the health stuff. I'm actually amazed that as many people went to like the DC pop-up that went to the DC pop-up.
Yeah.
And I'm curious whether they really got something out of it or if it's just they want to boost ASAE and say it was awesome, but yet we all wore masks. We were all 6 feet apart. We fist bumped. To me, that's not an experience that I want to participate in. There's no value or little value or less value in that to me. Yeah. So I don't know, Kevin, I actually have I stuck my foot in it, and you know who the client is. Their annual meeting is starting tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
And I had to tell the executive director, this is a group that I sell exhibits and sponsorships for. Their meeting is here in San Diego.
Wow.
All day Expo Thursday, all day Expo Friday. I told the executive director that unless they mandate masks, I'm not going.
Mhm.
And she was not happy.
Mhm.
She was just not happy. She was like, I mean, it kind of blew my mind in some ways, because the email I got back when I explained to her, look, I've got a 10-year-old at home who's not vaccinated and can't be vaccinated. I'm not exposing myself to this unless they mandate masks.
Right.
Her reply was, so you're telling me you are unwilling to attend unless they mandate masks?
Yes.
And I said,
Yeah, that's right.
I said,
That's
that's
right.
exactly what I'm saying. And I have not heard anything back from her since then.
Yeah.
You're saying they're an ex-client now, so.
Well, that's obviously, Kevin, that's the fear, right?
Thank
That's
you for the sneak
what I had
preview.
to.
I appreciate that.
We
No,
had
I
a
just
long
worry a little bit like
conversation
maybe
here.
it's just too old, man. It's like I feel like when I sit down in a session, it's like I'll go back and my mind will say, oh, 20 years ago, that's a lot
So-
like X, you know, I mean, you know.
So yeah, Kevin, that's the thing. And, I think, Scott, what I get from that, your example is just this frustration level of, they're kind of pushing the limits, trying to make this happen like it used to be. And there's just no used to be, you can't go back to that. And, kind of to answer your question, Kevin, also is that, it's not that I have a problem attending online, experiences and virtual events and those type of things. But these days, and Scott, I'm a culprit as maybe as you too, is that we've done sessions and they've been kind of backdoor hosted by, some for-profits that are just trying to get attention and people registered. So they have, a prospect list to work off of, and, and it's hard to know what to attend. It's really hard to figure that out. I see the session, I'm like, that's a great title. That description's perfect. But I'm like, do I really trust the information coming from that person to tell me, or who is this person that's, are they really an expert, or are they just, the guy, the director of engagement from the AMS that they're trying to sell, and it's like, I have, don't get me wrong. Many of them are very, knowledgeable, valuable, experts out there and have a lot of information, but it's also, what are they trying to sell me? And what am I getting in myself into in either presenting or attending these events? And it's hard to tell these days what's, really going to be, the good stuff, the good quality.
Yeah,
So I just,
here.
oh, sorry, I just had a couple of things. I'm thinking that, you did see a lot of attendance at probably a lot of the pop-ups around the country, because people just want to get out and socialize and see people. I think regardless of, the health implications, they're just like, oh, I can do it, I can try it. And then, you'll see what happens. But I think that that's probably why you see so many people going. But for Scott, I just had a quick question, is it that you're fatigued with being in front of a computer, or have you always had this bandwidth for online things? And I feel that, myself, there's always been online, seminars, courses, whatever, but I just never pay attention as much as as in case I was like in person. So I'm just wondering, is this new for you, or is it just?
I think some of it's new, and I will say it's due to age in the industry, not due to just age, even though obviously one correlates to the other. But even when I go to annual and things like that, I'm not really there for the sessions anymore.
Yeah.
And I like this format because we're really actually having a conversation today, right? It's like, Dana, if you and I didn't know each other beforehand, we've sort of developed a rapport, at least because we're having a conversation.
Right.
When you get too many people on Zoom, you don't do that. We're all in boxes and we don't do it. And when it's just somebody speaking at you, you don't do it. So I find that I totally zone out if it's somebody speaking at me, because Dan, you're right. A lot of times and as a consultant, it's troublesome for me to say this, but oftentimes it is a veiled sales pitch. And sometimes it's not a very well veiled sales pitch.
Right.
It's just a sales pitch. And
Right.
you don't know that when you sign up. And so I tune out just so fast. 30 seconds of my time to prove this is going to be worthwhile, and otherwise I'm out.
Well, and with as many years as most of us have in the industry, or, in the association world, and especially focused around membership, is there really anything new to learn? I mean, it's just they repackage it or say it a different way, or they feel like there's certain technologies that might take it to the next level. But for the most part, I mean, again, it's recruitment, retention, engagement, onboarding, I mean, all those same topics, you can talk about them, in circles, and still it's the same type of information or strategy, really, that you're learning. So it's hard for us probably to learn something new or a new take on it. And yeah, every time I go to ASC's MMC, CC and sit in a session, I'm like, this is the same stuff. But the way they said it or the way they did it, it's like, that's interesting. Maybe I should try that. It's, again, because there's so much testing going on, someone tested this and it worked. Okay, I'm going to take that little bit of change and put it into my program and see if that helps. And so, there's always something new, and there's always something that makes you think, even if it's the same stuff.
But
Yeah, I think we have a little bit of an issue of sacred cows here, where it's like, the members would go crazy if they didn't offer some sort of experience, whether or not it's great. And then you have the adjustment of trying to figure out like how to make it worthwhile or how to get that, because as you all mentioned, life is not the same and it's never going back to the way it was. Yes, there will be in-person things, but what does that look like? And how do you meet this new electronic digital era, where this is going to be the new norm for a while. So I don't know, but sometimes it's kind of more trouble than it's worth. I think that, people would be okay if you didn't have that experience, but what else can you give them?
Right.
Dan, one thing you said that makes me think about the different models and how accustomed we are to how people present at ASAE. You had the direct mail, direct marketing background, and I used to be the chair of DMA Nonprofit Federation. And so, we'd put on the conferences, and the difference is night and day in terms of what's actually being presented. There'll be a speaker who knows that, and it is like Scott says, it's kind of a thinly veiled sales pitch, but there'll be a consultant there with a large nonprofit, and they say, well, here are the three options that we tested. Here's like test metrics we had. Here's the thought process that went into why we came up with these specific messages we wanted to test each one's against. And then here's what happened and what surprised us. And then because that was last year, let us tell you how it actually did at rollout. Now, contrast that sort of like meaningful specificity to what happens in, I hate to say it, but the typical association exec's presentation will oftentimes go into too much detail about how idiosyncratic their environment is. But if you press a little bit and say, but why did that work? We really don't know. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, then don't present if you can't tell me why this worked. I know I'm being like patently unrealistic and kind of biting the hand of the community that feeds me, but it just always struck me that the difference is night and day. And if I challenge myself after coming back from an annual meeting, and I got a bunch of notes, or I got on my laptop and I go, what out of all of this told me something that really was new, not just intriguing, but new and applicable? And there might be three things, at best.
Right.
I mean, your cat's really cute, by the way, Cindy.
Yes, Cindy.
Wants to participate. I think I'm a little bit in between Scott and Dan. I found sometimes you can get some nuggets, but it's really tough. A lot of the in-person sessions, when I would go to them, I found more value outside of the actual sessions. Yeah. And now that everything's virtual, we're a virtual organization. I mean, I'm on the computer, I'm in video all day long. So the last thing I really want to do is another video, I mean, I love this group. This is a great group.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In the beginning, there was so much that you could attend. And after a while, I think Zoom fatigue is a real thing and people are starting to get a little tired of it all. So, that's sort of where I am right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. It's 11 after, so I just want to respect your time, but I appreciate and respect all your input and contributions today. And so again, September 21st, Tony will be here for the benchmarking survey, and look forward to the conversation. So everyone take care, stay healthy, and we'll see you then.
Take care. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.